This discussion we are going to see the basics of structural dynamics. This is actually an important course under the Anna University curriculum for BE Civil Engineering students in 7th semester. So today's discussion I am going to cover the free vibration of single degree of freedom system. Now let me give you an outline of what we are going to see in this discussion. First we are going to see what is dynamics. In fact, this is the topic which we are going to see in the beginning because this is the course on structural dynamics. Then we are going to see the vibrations of systems because our discussion is going to be on free vibration. Actually there are two types of vibrations, one is free, other one is forced. Then of course we are going to see what is degree of freedom. Because our discussion is going to focus mainly on single degree of freedom systems. So this is a type of degree of freedom, so SDOF systems. Then we are going to see the mathematical modeling for the degree of freedom, that is equation of motion. So it is equation of motion. There we must compulsorily discuss one important principle called D'Alembert's principle. Then we are going to see that important terminologies like natural period and frequency. In fact, these are some of the important terminologies where we must be careful while discussing about dynamics. Then we are going to discuss some of the standard units, because in SI system of units there are some standard units prescribed for defining the various parameters in dynamics. And after seeing the standard units we are going to see some of the variation in stiffness, because stiffness is again an important parameter when we are going to discuss about dynamics. Then we will be discussing in the final stage the different variety of problems what we can do or solve in this free vibration of single degree of freedom systems. Now we will start with what is dynamics. To define what is dynamics, we have to go back to our higher secondary physics where we have already studied something on mechanics. So let me give you an overview of what is mechanics. Now to define this mechanics, we have to go again to this definition of force. We all know force has been defined clearly by Sir Isaac Newton. That is, we have to understand the Newton's three laws of motion. So the first law states, that is, it is actually the definition of force. It is defined like force is that which tries to change the state of position of a body. The body may be either in rest or in motion. So that is the main definition of force. It is clearly given in Newton's first law of motion. Now coming to the second law. The Newton's second law mainly spoke on the formula what we are commonly using for finding the force. That is, force is defined as the mass times acceleration. In fact, many of you will be using F is equal to ma. So this is the important law which is following the formula for force. So there it states like the rate of change of momentum acting on a body is directly related to the external force acting on it. This is what the Newton's second law of motion. And of course everyone knows the third law states every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So these are the Newton's three laws. Now coming to that mechanics, which is directly related with the term force. So mechanics is nothing but the behavior of any body or a structure under the action of an external force. So if external force is acting on a body, how that body is going to behave. For example, we are going to kick a ball. A ball is there, say a football. We are going to kick a football. When you kick the football with a force, the ball will be under movement. So that is the behavior of the ball. That we will call that as a response. So that response of a structure or a body is defined in that is with respect to mechanics. Now this mechanics has been classified into two major divisions. One is statics. The other one is dynamics. Now statics mostly deal with bodies which are under rest or where the time is not going to play a major role. The time will be, that is, it will not be changing or the body's position will not change with respect to time. Whereas when you speak about dynamics, the body will be under movement and the body's position will gradually change, or the force will change with respect to time. So any change which is happening with respect to time, there we can call the term as dynamics. So now our context is going to discuss mainly on dynamics. So now we can define this dynamics. It is like the behavior of a body or behavior of a system under the action of an external force which varies with respect to time. So here dynamics is varying with respect to time. Now what is this structural dynamics? In fact, other than structural dynamics, we do have many other dynamics. One is thermodynamics, and actually we have fluid dynamics and many other dynamic systems. Now our focus is mainly on structural dynamics. So now I am going to define the structural dynamics, which states like the behavior of any structure, under the action of an external force which varies with respect to time. So with respect to time is the major term which we are going to discuss under the term dynamics, and if it is focused on the behavior of a structure, it is called structural dynamics. Now coming to the next topic, or looking into the today's discussion, that is free vibration of single degree of freedom system. There we must compulsorily see what is this vibration. Then we are going to see the degree of freedom. Now looking into the vibration, any motion that periodically changes with respect to time, or any motion which repeats itself periodically. For example, the common example which people will use to say is the oscillation of a pendulum. So if a pendulum is, what it is doing, so a pendulum is there. If you look into the oscillation of a pendulum, so first moment it will be going to the right side maximum, then other side, next it will be coming back to the neutral position, then again the pendulum will be going to the left side maximum. So now what is happening here? The pendulum's movement is getting repeated with equal interval of time. So this term is commonly called as any vibration, or otherwise it can be called as oscillation. And when we look into this term vibration, it is classified into two types. One is free, other one is forced. Now what is this free? Now we shall take the same common example of a pendulum. Now you take a pendulum. Pendulum in the sense you need not look into a clock. We can say even a ball tied on a string. You take a string and tie a ball at the bottom and you just try to oscillate it. It is also called a pendulum. So there now we see how to create this free vibration. You give an initial force, like I am pulling the ball towards the right. Now I am just leaving the ball. What is happening there? The ball will be under free movement. It is not subjected to any external force. So it will be under total free vibration. Now this is called free vibration. Now what will be there in forced vibration? So under forced vibration, some external force will be continuously acting on the pendulum or any oscillation system. For example, we shall take the same ball. Now what it is happening? I am giving you the initial tap. So the ball will be under movement. When it is coming back again to the right side, I am again giving a tap. Again it is oscillating. I am giving again a tap. So these are all the good examples of, that is, forced vibration of a vibrating system or an oscillating system. Some other common examples we can say, like you take any structure like a portal frame. So it has got some mass and some column, that is two columns are there and a fixed mass is there. Now this portal frame, if it is subjected to some external force like this, say f of t. Why I am referring here as f of t? Because this force is going to vary with respect to time. That is what we have defined here in dynamics. So this force is going to vary with respect to time. So if the external force is continuously acting, what will happen to that portal frame? The portal frame will be under vibration like this. So the vibration repeats periodically and it is a good example of a forced vibration. Other common examples what we can say is, if an earthquake is subjecting or it is acting on this particular portal frame, that earthquake is a very good example of a forced vibration. Say an earthquake is hitting the structure on the foundation and that structure will be under continuous vibration. So this is how we can define forced vibrations. Now how can we give example for a free vibration on this structure? You give an initial force and remove that force. Now the structure will be under oscillation without any external force. Now that is termed as free vibration. Fine. Now going into the next topic, degree of freedom. Now what is this degree of freedom? And in fact in our title we have referred free vibration of a single degree of freedom system. Now what do you mean by this degree of freedom? Many of us would have come across this word, but we may not use it at many occasions. Degree of freedom. So how far a particular system or an object is having the flexibility to move. That is the total number of independent displacements. I repeat, it is total number of independent displacements. So what is that independent displacement? The object or the body can move freely without any disturbance. Say you take a door. The door has got a hinge. So what is the door is doing? The door has the independency to move along the hinge direction. So it can rotate on the left and as well as towards the right. So that is a good example of degree of freedom. Now coming into the structural point of view or structural engineering point of view, which one is called degree of freedom? We will take again a same pendulum example, or we can take any mass which is suspended with a spring. This is the mass, there we got a spring. Now if I am pulling the mass and leaving the mass, what is happening? Some free vibration is happening. Now what is the degree of freedom? The total number of independent displacements. How many independent displacements are happening? See, only one mass is moving up and down. So this is a very good example of single degree of freedom system. So only one degree of freedom. We can also take this hand as a common example. You just move our hand towards the top and bottom. So what is the degree of freedom? So my hand can move only towards the top and go back to the position. So this is a degree of freedom. Or if I am moving my head front and back and left and right. So how many degrees of freedom? There are 2 degrees of freedom. Of course, this is now the definition of what is degree of freedom. Now the degree of freedom is again classified into 2 types. One is single degree of freedom and other one is multi-degree of freedom system. So 2 types of degrees of freedom, single and multi. Here it is a good example of single degree of freedom system because the total number of independent displacement is only 1. So only one mass is coming up and down. So the independent displacement possible is only in the vertical direction. So up and down movement. So this is single degree of freedom system. Now if more than 1, the degree of freedom is more than 1, it is called as multi-degree of freedom system. For example 2. Some textbooks do refer as 2 degree of freedom system and then multi. But as per the standard definition or the classical definition, if the degree of freedom is more than 1, it is termed as multi. Now how can we define some multi-degree? Now we shall take this common example of a portal frame or the same pendulum. First coming into the portal frame, there is a mass, and if you apply some force like F of t, the frame will be oscillating in the left and right direction. So how many degrees of freedom? So this is the degree of freedom. In fact, we can refer this as the displacement is towards the left because the force is towards the left and the movement will be left and right. So there is only 1 degree of freedom. Now looking at this pendulum, so what is the degree of freedom? The mass is going left and right. The mass is going left and right. So the degree of freedom is only 1. So here also we can say the movement is left and right. So this is single degree of freedom system. Now what is multi? We will take the same pendulum. If you take a mass, a pendulum ball, another mass. So how many pendulums are involved here? 2 masses are involved. One we can call as say mass 1, other one is we can call as mass 2. So if 2 masses are involved, if I am pulling this mass and allowing it to oscillate, there will be 2 independent displacements because this mass will be moving separately with its respectable freedom and this mass m1 will be independently moving under its own freedom. So there will be 2 independent displacements possible. That is, this mass moving will be moving left and right and the other mass will be moving left and right. So this is a good example of a 2 degree of freedom system. Likewise, if you take this portal frame, if you add one more story, this is only a ground story structure. If you add one more story like G plus 1, there 2 independent displacements will be possible. As a result, that is a good example of a 2 degree of freedom system. In fact, that is called multi-degree of freedom system. I think now the degrees of freedom concept is explained, and next we shall go for that is equation of motion. So what is that equation of motion? When we are going to write the equation of motion, I must give an important term called mathematical modeling. Now so far we have discussed that is single degree of freedom system under free vibration. Now we are going to confine our all discussions to single degree of freedom system under free vibration. Now we are going to coin the equation of motion for the single degree of freedom system. For that we must model the mathematical equation for that vibration. That is, if you take a spring, that is a spring of stiffness K and a mass, because usually we will call the springs with stiffness. So this stiffness is K and this mass is M. Actually the stiffness is small k and the mass is M. Now if this is under oscillation, I want to mathematically model this vibration, that is with respect to the response as well as the external force. Say for example, the external force is acting like this. The response will be again in the downward direction. This is x of t. That is the response. Now to mathematically model this, I can take the very common example of a spring mass dashpot arrangement. That is, there is a spring and it has got a mass, or the mass is connected with it, and it is suspended on rollers. Now this is the mass and this is the spring K and this is the force F of t. Now here I have to introduce one more term called the dashpot arrangement. What is this dashpot arrangement? We will see little later. Now you see here, this is the mass, it is subject to some external force. Now we have modeled this into a spring mass dashpot arrangement. What is this? This is the mass, this is the spring, this is called the dashpot, and this is the external force F of t, and the response will be in the right direction. See, you take the same spring setup, you just bring it to the right direction, that is you just fit it here. You see what is the degree of freedom? The mass can move left and right because it is suspended on rollers. The mass can move left and right and it has got a spring. What is the role of the spring? Because of its stiffness, the spring will pull the mass back to its position, because if you apply some external force, the mass will be moving towards the right, the spring will be pulling it back to the left direction. Now coming to this dashpot arrangement. What is this dashpot arrangement? Here I have introduced a symbol called small c. What is this small c? This small c is actually called as damping coefficient. Damping coefficient. This is nothing but some resistance to the movement of the structural system. Now for example, if this mass is moving in an air medium, the air medium will provide some sort of resistance to the movement. Say for example, I am flapping my hand in an empty space, like I can move freely my hand. The same hand, if I am moving inside a bucket of water, so I will experience some sort of resistance to the movement. Now if I move the same hand inside a bucket of oil, what will happen? The resistance will be further increased. That resistance, what it is being offered to the movement. So like I am moving my hand, like that, if the resistance is offered on the movement of the mass, that is nothing but called damping, and that damping is expressed in terms of damping coefficient and its symbol is C. Now if you define that damping force is nothing but F of d or Fd. It is directly proportional to the velocity x dot. What is this x dot? X dot is nothing but dx by dt, that is rate of change of displacement. Now this damping force is directly proportional to velocity, so we can write this Fd as c into x dot, because we are removing this proportionality symbol, so we are introducing a constant. That constant is nothing but the damping coefficient. So this is Fd. Now this c has been introduced here. Now what is this dashpot? It is something like a damper. Damper in the sense, we can take a common example of the oil shock absorber, what we commonly use in our two-wheelers. You see, in our two-wheeler, for example, that arrangement is something like, there will be like a piston and there will be a vessel which is filled with some oil. Now you see here, that piston is moving up and down, and this oil medium is providing some sort of resistance. So that is explained here in the form of a damper, or it is otherwise called as dashpot. That is why this common diagram speaks more on spring mass dashpot arrangement. and this is an exact modeling of a single degree of freedom system. Fine. Now we are going to find the mathematical model. What is the response equation? We are going to coin the equation. To go into this, we must essentially know what is this D'Alembert's principle. He is in fact a famous personality who has proposed the important principle on dynamics. Now what is this D'Alembert's principle? It is nothing but, that is, we can say that D'Alembert's principle with respect to the inertia force. Hope many of us know what is inertia. Inertia force. So I will define this D'Alembert's principle first, then we will go into this inertia force. So D'Alembert's principle states that the system forces acting on a body is directly related with the inertia forces acting on it. That is, I repeat, the system of forces acting on a body is directly related or almost equal to the inertia forces acting on it. That is, it is speaking mainly on the term called inertia force. Now that D'Alembert's principle is needed in finding the mathematical model for this single degree of freedom system. What is this inertia force? Inertia, we have used this inertia at many occasions like moment of inertia, etc. Now I will say what is this inertia force. Inertia force is nothing but the tendency of any object to be in the same position. For example, we used to say a common example of a passenger traveling in a bus. Let us consider or imagine a passenger is in a bus, he is in a standing position and he is not holding any support. Imagine the bus is in a standing position, it is not in movement. Now the person is standing, the bus is suddenly starting, that is getting started. Now what will happen? Because of the sudden movement of the person in his feet, which direction the person will be falling down? He will be falling towards the back. The reason is the body's inertia effect is trying to retain the body in its original position. The body doesn't want to move forward because the bus is moving forward, but the body doesn't want to move forward. The same example we can take in a moving bus. For example, let us consider the same passenger in a bus. Now the bus is in moving condition. Imagine the bus is moving at a speed of say 60 to 70 km per hour. Now he is moving in the forward direction. Now if the bus is suddenly stopped, what will happen to the passenger if he is not holding any support? Which direction he will be falling down? He will be falling towards the back. Is it clear? So because of that movement, so that particular thing, what it is happening, the body is trying to retain its same position. That is, it wants to be in the same position during the movement. That is called inertia effect, or that is called inertia force. Now that inertia force is essentially needed when we are doing the mathematical modeling. Now we are going into the free body diagram concept. That is, we are going to form the free body diagram for this system, and based on that we are going to devise the model. The free body diagram of this setup can be drawn like there is a mass, and this mass has got an external force F of t and spring force. I will call this spring force as say Fs, and this damping force we have already defined, it is Fd. Now I am going to introduce that inertia force, because what is the purpose of that inertia force? That inertia force is going to place the body in its same position. For example, if the body is at rest, the inertia force will not allow the body to move in the forward direction. So which direction the inertia force will be acting? Definitely it will act in the left direction. So why I am drawing this dotted line here for the inertia force? Because inertia force is an imaginary force. It is not visible outside, whereas we can see the damping force and the spring force visibly, because the spring is having some action and the damper is having some action. So this is what the free body diagram, it is comprising of all the forces. Here we have ignored the gravity effect because we are going to speak mainly on the mass and its movement. So the gravity is, that is, will be acting on the acceleration, and it is an external force. So we are simply ignoring the gravitational pull. So we are ignoring the gravity and we are ignoring the friction effects. So how many forces are involved? F of t is the external force, spring force, damping force, and the inertia force. It is an imaginary force. Now, according to the D'Alembert's principle, initially we have defined this D'Alembert's principle. What it says? The system of forces acting on the body, that is the system of forces acting on the body, is in dynamic equilibrium with the inertia force. That is, we have to write the equilibrium equation for the system of forces. How many forces are acting towards the left? 3 forces, Fs, Fd and Fi. How many forces are acting towards the right? Only one force. So we can write this equation, or we can find the equilibrium like spring force plus damping force plus inertia force. This is equal to the external force. This is what the equilibrium equation for this particular free body diagram. Now we are in a position to define what is spring force, to define what is damping force, and to define what is inertia force. Once you finish this, we can easily get the equation of motion. Now coming into what is spring force. Spring force, I will write this as K times displacement, where X is displacement we have defined already, and K, this is actually small k, this is the stiffness of the system. Now we already know the definition of stiffness. Definition of stiffness is load acting on, or load acting for unit displacement. This displacement is nothing but X. Now what is this W? It is nothing but the weight or the force. So W is nothing but K into X. That is what given here as spring force. Now coming to the damping force, which we have already defined, it is damping force is the damping coefficient into the velocity, that is x dot. Here actually we have to define what is this x dot. X dot is rate of change of displacement. Now coming to this inertia force, what is this Fi? So inertia force is exactly related with the Newton's second law of motion. So what Newton's second law of motion says? Rate of change of momentum acting on the body is directly proportional or equal to the external force. So here we can write that as Fi as mass times acceleration. So with respect to displacement, how can we define acceleration? It is nothing but x double dot. What is this x double dot? It is second order differentially, that is x double dot is d squared x by dt squared, that is rate of change of velocity. Rate of change of displacement is velocity, rate of change of velocity is acceleration. Now we can see mx double dot. Now bringing in all these things into the system. So what we can write? I'll write Fi first, because the second order differential equation can be given more importance, then comes the first order, then the displacement. So I'll write like mx double dot plus cx dot plus kx. This is equal to f of t. This is the most famous or the important dynamic equation of motion representing the free vibration of single degree of freedom system. So we have to know, or we have to remember this equation at most of the situations. That is, I repeat, mx double dot or mx dot dot or m into d squared x by dt squared plus cx dot or c into dx by dt plus kx. This is equal to f of t, where this is related with the inertia force, this is related with the damping force, and this is the spring force. And in fact, f of t is an external force. Now what is the setup related to? This is forced vibration actually, but so far what we are speaking on free vibration of the single degree of freedom system. So for a free vibration, what will happen to this equation of motion? The equation of motion, f of t will become 0. So for a free vibration, what will happen to this equation? So for free vibration, this equation will become mx double dot plus cx dot plus kx. This is equal to 0, because there is no external force. Because under free vibration, what is the basic definition? Initially and some force is given, but the system is allowed to oscillate freely. There won't be continuous external force. Now we are going to take the same equation of motion and going to represent it for a system without any external damping. So the equation of motion what we have defined for a free vibration is mx double dot plus cx dot plus kx. This is equal to 0. This is what the equation of motion what we have coined for a free vibration of single degree of freedom system. Now in this, if there is no external damping, what will happen? This is the term representing the damping. For example, the system is going to oscillate under a vacuum condition where there won't be any damping by the external medium. In that situation, the equation of motion will be reduced to mx double dot plus kx is equal to 0. This is actually free vibration of SDOF system without any damping. So why we are writing this equation of motion? Because this is actually an ideal case. Because why I am telling again it's an ideal case? Because we cannot make any system to oscillate in a vacuum condition. So that is again an ideal condition because there is no damping, and in fact as it is a free vibration, there is no external force. So we have coined the equation of motion for the free vibration of a single degree of freedom system without any external damping. Now for this we are going to solve for the response, or we are going to find the frequency and natural time period. That is what the next section what we are going to discuss. Now in this I can write this as mx double dot plus kx is equal to 0. This is what the equation. Now I am writing this as x double dot plus, I am dividing the entire term by mass. So it will be k by m into x. This is equal to 0. K by m into x. Now what is this k by m? This is nothing but I am going to introduce one new symbol called omega n squared. Omega n squared, this is equal to k by m. What is this omega n? Actually it is a Greek symbol which denotes the natural angular frequency. Omega n is actually called as natural angular frequency, and this omega n is nothing but square root of k by m. As it is angular frequency, it is normally represented in terms of radians per second. This is natural angular frequency and it is called root of k by m, where k is the stiffness of the system or the spring and m is the mass of the body or the single degree of freedom system's mass, and it is expressed in terms of radians per second because it is angular frequency. Now coming to the next section of our discussion, which is on natural period and frequency. Now we all know what is this natural period. Whenever we are speaking about vibrations, up and down vibration or left and right oscillations or any oscillation or vibration, we have to speak on this natural period. Now how to define this natural period? The time taken for completing one full cycle of oscillation. That is, we shall take again a pendulum. That is, when a pendulum is oscillating, it is going to the left maximum, coming to the mean position, again going to the right maximum and again coming back to the mean position. That normally in terms of clock it is 1 second. That is, it is going from the mean position towards the maximum, again coming back, again going to the negative mean or negative maximum. So that is one full cycle. So time taken, that is if it is 1 second, the time taken to complete one full cycle, it is T capital, that is it is represented in terms of capital T. So capital T is 1 second, or if it is taking 2 seconds to complete one full cycle of oscillation, that will be 2 seconds. That is, the definition of natural period is time taken to complete one full cycle of oscillation. It is generally represented as Tn or T, that is T or Tn. As it is time taken, it is normally represented in terms of seconds. Time taken. Now coming to what is frequency, it is exactly inverse. As we are saying, natural period or T is the time taken to complete one full cycle of oscillation. Now the frequency is number of cycles completed in 1 second. That is, if it is a 1 second we are taking, in that 1 second how many cycles are completed. If it is 1 cycle, it is 1 second per cycle or 1 cycle per second. If it is 2, we can say as 2 cycles per second. Now again this frequency is represented in terms of small f or Fn. So this is called as natural frequency, whereas this is called as natural angular frequency, and this is called as natural time period or time period. Now this is expressed in say cycles per second, or some people used to write as CPS, or this is otherwise expressed in terms of hertz. Hertz, that is normally measurement of frequency. Now coming to the standard units, although of course we have defined the standard units of what is for omega n, it is radian per second, and what is for Tn, it is second. See, I have used the small s, it is not capital S, it is only small s, and for natural frequency it is hertz, or cycle per second. Now the other terminologies what we have used in our discussions are, particularly we have to speak more on stiffness and the mass. So the standard unit of stiffness is K. So what is the standard unit of stiffness? As stiffness speaks, that is, stiffness is nothing but force required to produce unit displacement. So what is the unit of force or the weight? It is nothing but Newton, and normally displacement is referred in terms of meter or millimeter. For this equation of motion or this discussion, the stiffness is generally referred in terms of Newton per meter. And the mass, of course every one of us know, it is expressed in kg. So these are the standard units what we must use whenever we are discussing on structural dynamics or dynamics of any vibrating system. I repeat, omega n is expressed in radians per second, natural time period is expressed in seconds, frequency or natural frequency is expressed in cycles per second or hertz, and very important thing is the stiffness is expressed in Newton per meter and mass is expressed in kilogram. Then coming into the variation in stiffness, that is, if the stiffness is getting varied, for example, there are, instead of one spring, there are two springs in a system, what will be the resultant stiffness? That we are going to discuss now. Now, variation in stiffness. There are two types of variation normally possible. One is the springs or the stiffening elements in series. Other one is the springs in parallel. What is this springs in series? Say for example, two springs are acting on a system or acting on a mass, like a support is there and there is a spring and there is another spring, and now we have got a mass. Now these two springs are having two different stiffness, like this is having stiffness as K1, this is having stiffness as K2, and this is mass. This is one type of variation in the stiffness, because there is no one single spring but there will be two springs. But what will be the movement? There is only one mass and the freedom or degree of freedom will be only one. The mass will be moving only in the up and down direction. The degree of freedom is only one, but there will be two different springs which is having two different stiffness. So we have to find, or we have to combine those stiffness for our calculations. Next, the other common situation is, you have got a spring, you have got another spring. Now this is supported like this. Again here, this is K1, this is K2, two different stiffness. Now what are these two conditions? The first condition is depending on or related to springs in series, whereas the second condition is related to springs in parallel. Now what will be the equivalent stiffness in these two cases? Here for springs in series, I will write the equivalent that is condition. Here it is called as 1 by Ke is equal to 1 by K1 plus 1 by K2. Whereas springs in parallel, the Ke can be directly calculated as K1 plus K2. So these are the two types of variation in stiffness. One is springs in series and other one is springs in parallel. So far we have seen two types of springs, that is series springs and parallel springs. Now what we have to do with this effective stiffness, that is Ke? When we are finding omega n, actually the formula for finding omega n is square root of K by m. Instead of using K by m in this situation, we can use, it is square root of Ke by m. This is how we can play with this, or we can use the formula for finding the omega n or the natural angular frequency. Once you find this omega n, how can we go for finding the natural period and frequency? Because whenever we are speaking the important terminologies in dynamics, we have to find the natural period and frequency which is actually related with this omega n. What is that relation? So we are going to discuss that now. Now we see T, the time period or the natural time period, it is defined as 2 pi by omega n. Now we are in a situation to define, or we are in a situation to realize how this relation has been coined. You see, this is natural angular frequency. This is referred to most of the rotation systems, that is whenever the system is under rotation, we are going to speak on angular frequency. Now what is this 2 pi? 2 pi is relating to the total circular radiance, that is what is the total angle covered. If you take a circle, say for example, you take a circle, the total included angle in this circle is nothing but 2 pi radians. If you say in degree it is 360 degree, and if you say in radian it is 2 pi radian. Now what is this Tn? Time taken to complete one full cycle of oscillation. Now you see, one full cycle of rotation, it is the time taken, and omega n is actually radians completed in 1 second. So if you divide this with the others, if you divide the total angle with this omega n, you will get the natural time period, that is Tn. Then how to find this Fn? I was telling you in the beginning, the frequency is nothing but the inverse of natural time period, that is 1 by Tn. So how can we find Fn in terms of omega n? It is nothing but the inverse. So Fn will be omega n divided by 2 pi. So these are the common formulas which we will be using to find the relation of natural period and frequency, or we can use them in different types of problems what we are going to see in the next section. So I think the springs in series and springs in parallel are all clearly explained, and there the important thing we have to notice, for finding the omega n we have to use Ke instead of using K. Now I am in a situation to explain again what are the standard examples, because these are all some ideal conditions, like we can take a spring, springs are connected in series, but where it is practically related. So let me explain. You take a simply supported beam, it's a practical condition, say a hinge is on one end and the other end is supported with rollers. Now if this is having a spring at the bottom and I am having a mass, like most of the gantry girders we will have this situation. Many of the gantry girders what we do have in some of the laboratories or industries, we do have this situation. So we are suspending a mass, say a weight or a crane. Imagine on a gantry girder we have got a crane, there we have got a spring. Now what is this spring acting? The spring is having some stiffness, whereas the entire gantry girder or the simply supported beam will have some stiffness, that we call as, say, stiffness of the beam. What is this condition? Two stiffness are acting in one single setup. This is a very common practical example. Now what is this? Whether it is related to springs in series or it is related to springs in parallel, it is related to springs in series. How it is? You just imagine or just relate with this behavior. What is happening? This mass is going to move down, and what this spring is going to do? This spring is going to pull it up, and what this beam is going to do? This beam is again going to pull that spring up. So both are acting in a same line. So this particular setup can be idealized or can be drawn like a support is there, a spring is there, another spring is there, and you got a mass. Now what is this first spring? First spring is nothing but stiffness of the beam. What is the second spring? It is the given spring. So two different springs are connected in a same line, that is why it is called springs in series. Now which practical condition is related with springs in parallel? We can take a very common example of a loading frame system. That is, you take a frame, say a slab is there which is connected with beams, and you have got, say, here a column, here a column, and you have got a column here, and another column is here. So how many columns are involved here? Totally 4 different columns are involved. So these columns are all parallel. If you call this as K1 of first column and K2 of the second column, here K3 and here K4. So 4 different stiffnesses are involved. How they are how they are related? All the 4 stiffnesses are parallel to each other. In that situation, we can call them like K1, K2, K3, K4. 4 stiffeners or 4 springs are parallel to each other. So what will be the equivalent stiffness? In this situation, Ke will be K1 plus K2 plus K3 plus K4. In fact, if there are some 12 different columns in a loading frame system, so we have to add all the 12 different column stiffness. Sometimes 1 or 2 columns will be having the same stiffness. Sometimes 2 columns will be having one single stiffness, or another 2 columns will be having another stiffness. In fact, what is the system? We have to add all the 4 or all the 12, whatever it is, to find Ke. Once you find Ke, we can find the natural angular frequency very easily as omega n is equal to root of Ke by m. This is how we proceed, and once you find omega n, we will be in a situation to find natural period and the frequency. So these are the various setups we have to do. I think the practical examples are sufficient. If you want much more examples, we can take like example of say a cantilever beam. A cantilever beam is there, it is supported with the spring. So this is another example of springs in series. Like that we can add many more practical examples. Now I think variation in stiffness concept is almost over. Then we are going into the next topic, the different variety of problems what we can use in structural dynamics or dynamics of single degree of freedom system under free vibration. Now the types of problems. First I have to say as an outline, most of the problems we will be finding the natural period and the frequency. Most of the problems, but the variety will be varying. How we are finding this Tn and Fn? It is directly related with omega n. So we must keep one thing clear in your mind or in our mind. Omega n is directly related with stiffness and mass. So for any dynamic system under free vibration, we have to speak mainly, first it is mass, next it is stiffness. Now you see omega n is equal to square root of k by m. If the mass of the body is increased, what will happen to the frequency? The frequency will be decreased. If mass is increased, the frequency will be decreased. If stiffness is increased, what will happen to the frequency? Again frequency will be increased. So that is some relation we have to play, or we have to understand. Mass is inversely proportional with the frequency, whereas stiffness is directly proportional to the frequency. So if mass and stiffness are getting varied, the frequency will be varying, which in turn will vary the period of vibration. So these are the common variety of problems. Now the basic problem, what it is the first type is you take a support which is having a spring and a mass. So mass is there, stiffness is there. That's all. So they will be giving some value for the spring, like say K is say 200 Newton per meter and mass of the body is say 20 kg. So this is one simple variety of problem. Normally this can be asked as a 2 mark or sometimes as a 4 mark. So what is will be asked? So we have to find natural time period and we have to find the natural frequency. So in this situation we shall go back to the common formula of finding omega n. So first find this omega n which is related with K and mass. So we can find this omega n. Once you know this omega n, the next important formula which must come automatically in our mind is finding the Tn, which is 2 pi by omega n. And next it is Fn. Fn is actually inverse of Tn. So these three formulas we must have clear in our mind. In fact, we have to by heart this, that is omega n is equal to square root of k by m, which can be calculated with the available data, and Tn can be calculated with this value and Fn will be calculated with this value. Now the important system of units, omega n is again expressed in radian per second, time period is expressed in seconds, and frequency is expressed in hertz or cycles per second. So this is one simple variety of problem. The next variety of problem are the common problems. Again the similar type, they will give a pendulum or they may give a portal frame and there will be a mass. So portal frame has got a mass because it is a single degree of freedom system. The mass can move left and right. It is a very common example of single degree of freedom system, and most of the situations they may give the combined stiffness as K. This is exactly the similar model of the problem. You need not confuse with like there are two columns and there may be two different stiffness. No, there is one combined stiffness which is directly given in the problem. So with this mass and stiffness we can directly find the natural period and the natural frequency. That is, first we have to find this omega n. So whatever it is, first step is we have to find this omega n. Then we have to proceed with finding Tn and Fn. Next, in other variety of problems with this same data, sometimes what they do is they will give the frequency. They will give the frequency, like in this same problem the mass will not be given, m will be unknown, and they will give the frequency of the system as say 12 hertz. So if the frequency is 12 hertz and mass is not given, It is an inverse of the previous problem or what we have discussed. That is, first we have to find Tn from the Fn because Fn is given. Fn is given, you find the Tn from Fn, then from this you find omega n, and coming to this relation, in this relation we have got K as known and mass as the unknown and omega n is known. So once two knowns are there, we can find the unknown of mass easily. So this is another variety, that is they will be giving the unknown terms or replacing the unknown terms and we have to find one after another. This is how the problems will be. Next, a similar variety we can speak on, say a cantilever beam which has got a mass. So this is the mass, this is the stiffness. So this is some different variety of problem because the cantilever beam is given. Normally cantilever beam is something like one end is fixed, another end is free like this. So what will be the type of vibration? Direction of vibration will be up and down. So what is the degree of freedom? It is again 1. The degree of freedom is again 1. The movement will be up and down. So the mass at the end of the cantilever, like here, it will be moving up and down. So that is the free vibration. Now we will be in a situation to find the period of vibration of this cantilever beam. If K and M are given, we can directly find omega n as it is. It's simple. Some of the problems will give K and some they will give the mass also. If these two data are available, we can directly find the omega n and we can find Tn as it is over. But many of the problems, they won't give the stiffness value directly. Instead, they will give the size of the cantilever beam. If the size of the cantilever beam is given, how to find the stiffness? This is one of the important place where we have to make a halt and discuss. Now, what is this stiffness? Stiffness is nothing but the force required to produce unit displacement. We have already discussed. Now, how to find the stiffness of a cantilever beam? Now, we have to go back somewhere to the basics what we have studied in our mechanics of solids or strength of materials. Like you take a cantilever beam which is having a point load at the free end. Say the point load is W and the beam is of length L. How will you calculate the displacement at the free end? Like the beam will be displacing like this and this is delta. Many of us will be knowing, that is in strength of materials itself we have learnt, that is the free vibration or the displacement at the free end of a cantilever beam can be calculated with the direct formula. In fact, this formula can be derived by moment area method or Macaulay's method. You have the simple methods in strength of materials. So this is nothing but WL cube divided by 3EI. So W is the, or capital W is the weight of the load acting at the free end, and L is the length of the beam, and E is the Young's modulus of the material of the beam. Young's modulus is directly related with the material of the beam, and I is the property of the beam or the property of size of the beam, which is otherwise called as moment of inertia. So we all know if the beam's cross section is rectangular, moment of inertia can be calculated like I is equal to BD cube divided by 12 because it is rectangular. B is the breadth, D is the depth. If it is a circular section, the same moment of inertia can be calculated as pi d to the power 4 by 64 because it is a circular section where D is the diameter. Most of the cases we may be using the rectangular section only in case of pipes. Many of the pipes do have a circular cross section. In that situation, we will find the moment of inertia using this relation. So I is directly related with the size. That is what we were mentioning in the beginning. Without giving the stiffness, if they do give the size, we can find the moment of inertia using that size. Now, how will you relate this with stiffness? Now you see here, the K is already related as W divided by delta. Now here is W, here is delta. So directly bring in this delta to the denominator. I will write this in the left hand side. So 3A will go to the other side. So 3EI by L cube. This is nothing but the stiffness. So W by delta, it is K. So if the size of the beam and material of the beam is given, we can directly find the stiffness using this relation. But this relation may not get applied for a simply supported beam because this formula has been applied only for the cantilever beam with the free point load at the free end. This may not be applied for the simply supported beam. Now if K is known with this formula, we can directly go for finding omega n and we can find Tn and Fn. That's all. So this variety of problem is little typical. So we have to be careful in finding the stiffness. Next variety is we can play with the simply supported beam. Simply supported beam, you keep a mass at the center. The beam is of length L and the cross section and E and IE value of the beam is given. In this situation, we have to go back again to the basics like how we are derived for a cantilever beam. That is, for a simply supported beam with central point load with W and the length is L, what will be the deflection at the free end of the cantilever? This is here, delta. This delta is nothing but WL cube by 48 EI. This is one of the very common formula many of us will be knowing. In fact, this was taught in the third semester of BE Civil Engineering in Mechanics of Solids. So WL cube by 48 EI. How will you get this K value from this relation? Again simple, K is equal to W by delta, that is equal to 48 EI by L cube. There it is 3 EI by L cube, here it is 48 EI by L cube. So if you do use the relation 3 EI by L cube here, the entire system will go wrong. So we have to be careful with the actual relation available. So you have to know or remember this relation and as well as this particular relation. Now once you know this K, you can find omega ns square root of K by M and it goes as usual. So this is how a typical cantilever beam and a typical simply supported beam can be related. Now going into the springs or variation in springs. Now if you have the same simply supported beam, like a simply supported beam, it has got a spring and it is supported with a mass. It's a spring of stiffness K. Now what is there? This case we have already discussed. So this beam will be having a stiffness of KB and spring is having a stiffness of K. So what is the condition of these two springs? These two springs are in series. So it will be like, first you have to find the KB using this relation, then the K or the spring stiffness will be known. You have to we have to calculate these two as a series and you have to find the effective stiffness as 1 by KB plus 1 by K. Once you know the effective stiffness, you can directly go for finding omega ns root of KE by M. This is how we can go for a simply supported beam with a spring. Now in the same case, if you take a cantilever, it has got a mass. This is KB, this is K. Now the same relation will be applied here, because the two springs are in series. This is how multiple springs can be connected. For example, if there are 3 springs, the relation will be 1 by KB plus 1 by K1 plus 1 by K2, or 4 springs, again add it. These are all springs in series. Fine. Now, how the springs in parallel will be related in these type of problems? Like, I can say here, for example, you take a mass, you have got a spring here and you have got a support here. Now if another spring is attached to the bottom of the mass and you have got a support, what is this condition normally called? Whether springs are in series or in parallel. In this situation, we must not look into the line of action. If you look into the line of action, what will happen? Both the springs are in the same line, so we can say both the springs are in series. But that is not the situation here. You look at the line of action, as well as the type of action. You see, this mass is attached with spring independently and independently. Two springs are independent. So if this mass is vibrating, K1 will be acting separately on the mass and K2 will be acting separately on the mass. So always look at the support condition and the type of action, because they are acting differently. So this is almost equivalent to a spring, another spring. So what is this condition related with? Springs in parallel. So these two springs are actually in parallel. Many of us will be making a mistake here, like the springs are in the same line, so the springs are in series. In this situation, we must be very, very careful. Now, most of the exam problems, they do confuse you with giving a data like there is a cantilever beam and it has got a support at the top and you have got a spring and you have got another spring, you have got a mass. Now there are three type of stiffness involved. So we have to be very, very careful in these type of situations. Like this is KB, that is stiffness of the beam. This is K1, this is K2, and here we got the mass. Now what is the situation? Leave this particular setup. Now imagine like a beam is there and a spring is there. Now first you just cut short this, you just remove the spring, keep the mass here. What will happen? I will just draw a rough diagram. As beam is there. So a beam is there and a spring is there. So KB and K1. So here we got a support. Imagine like the mass is attached here. Now what will be happening to the situation? These two springs are acting independently on the mass. That is, this is acting separately and this is acting separately. So what is this condition treated like? These two springs are in parallel. So KB and K1 actually in parallel. Now you just reduce this into KE1. So what will be the condition like? There will be KE1 and another spring is K2. Now we got the mass. Now these two things are simplified into one spring KE1 and there is another spring K2. Now what is the condition? Here it is very clear they are in series. Previously these two are in parallel. Now they have been combined, like KE1 is KB plus K1 and K2 is now in series with KE1. Now what will be the effective stiffness? Now we can find KE as, that is 1 by KE as 1 by KE1 plus 1 by K2. This is what the springs in series. Many of the people will be confusing here in this situation, like three springs are in series, like K1 and KB are in series, but it is not the situation. Here we have to be very, very careful, like the two springs are parallel. So whenever such type of problems are given, we have to think into the type of action. That is, we should not look into the line of action or we should not look into the connection. You look into the type of action. Try to analyze and understand how the masses are being connected with the springs. Here, this beam and this spring are connected independently on the line of action of the mass. So these two are in parallel and this is in series with the other system. And almost we have discussed all the variety of problems. So this discussion on the free vibration of single degree of freedom system, which has covered all these 8 discussions, is almost over. I repeat as a summary. Initially we have seen what is dynamics, that is discussion on behavior of bodies under the action of external forces which is varying with respect to time. That is dynamics, and that is related with structural dynamics, like behavior of a structure. Then we have seen the different type of vibrations. One is free and forced. Then we have seen into the degree of freedom, and in fact our topic is discussed only on the single degree of freedom system, because multi-degree of freedom system we can discuss module. And then we have come into the equation of motion, where the important D'Alembert's principle. This principle is very, very needed for most of the occasions in dynamics. So we have to be very, very careful with this D'Alembert's principle. Then we have gone into calculation of natural period, or the definition of natural period and frequency. And in fact we must be very, very careful in standard units, because if you make the units wrong or if you represent the system wrong, the entire calculations will go wrong. These are the practical illustrations, so we must be careful with the units. Then we have seen the variation in stiffness which was discussed recently, like springs in series and springs in parallel. Finally, we ended up with different variety of problems in which we will be calculating natural period and frequency. So with this, the discussion on free vibration of single degree of freedom system is almost over. Thank you.